You know, 1 Peter 3:15 says, "In your heart, set apart Christ as Lord. Always be prepared to give an answer to anyone who asks for the hope that you have, and do this with gentleness and respect." Amazing things happen when in our hearts we set apart Christ as Lord. People will start to ask us questions for the hope that we have, that confident assurance in Christ as our Savior and Lord. And when we share our story of faith with gentleness and respect, the Holy Spirit draws others to God. Today, you're going to hear the story of Beverly Maunus. It's absolutely incredible, the journey and the valleys that she goes through and the pain that she experiences. But how when she sets apart Christ as Lord in her life, that He uses all the pain in her life for a purpose. That He uses the whole test for a testimony. That He uses her entire mess at that point for a message. Our prayer is, as you hear Beverly's story unfold, that you would allow God to do the same for you as you set apart Him as Lord in your heart. Bev, thank you so much for being with us today. Your story is absolutely amazing. So let's just pick it up as a child in Yorkshire, England.
Yeah. Well, I was one of 5 children, a mom and a dad. I was the middle child. Had a relatively normal childhood till I was about 8 or 9.
And what unfolded then?
Just one night, my dad came into the bedroom and started touching me inappropriately.
And does that begin a pattern of that in your household?
Yeah.
And what's that do to you inside?
It causes a lot of insecurity, a lot of fear, it just takes your whole world and turns it upside down.
Is that when you started experiencing tremendous anxiety and having some panic attacks?
Yeah.
Did you realize what they were as
I had
happening?
no idea, absolutely no idea. I really I would lay in bed at night and just put my hand on my chest and, just feel my heart racing. And, a child of 8, 9 years old, you're just thinking you're going to die. I just kept thinking there was something really wrong with me, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. If I was in places, especially at school, we'd have an assembly in the morning every morning, and we'd all sit on the floor, hundreds of kids, and it was a fight just to stay there because I just wanted to get out and escape.
And if that's not bad enough, suddenly a gymnastics coach enters your life. Can you talk about what happened with him?
Yeah, the first gymnastic coach was amazing, and he was a wonderful role model. In my probably 9, 10, he was an elementary school teacher. He was wonderful. But the next, as I got better, I had to go to another town for my gymnastics. And this coach, we actually had a meet, it's not gymnastics, competition. They're more of a competition, not a meet. But I remember my first one, and we had to spend the night at his house, and there was other girls, and I remember laying on the couch, and because of what was happening with me, with my dad, it kind of gives you more of an awareness of people, kind of perceptions. It's just very different, and I just knew something was going on with him and another girl, and I actually woke up in the night, and they were on the floor to the other end of the room, and they were kissing and stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. Anyway, so I almost anticipated what was going to happen, And one day he actually made a phone call to my school and said for me to leave early, that there was a competition, I needed to get to the gym early. And so I left and went there, and there was nobody there except him, and he locked the doors, and he ended up trying to rape me. He didn't, because I think because of what was happening with my dad, it just gave me a fight, and that nobody was going to do that to me. And so I ended up hitting him, and he was chasing me. It was just terrible, but I did get away. But after that, it was almost kind of got him going to pursue me more. He gave me a ride home and locked the doors one night, and He did some inappropriate things.
And how old are you at the time? Aren't you like 11?
Yeah, I was probably 11 years old.
You had a karate coach?
Yeah, I was a little bit older then. I think I was more 14 or 15, and we had a karate, in a kind of a meet in another town, and I was with my friend, and we stayed in this house, a friend's house, and we were all there, the whole karate team, and the girls were to stay on one level and the guys upstairs, and I was asleep in my sleeping bag, and I wake in the night to it being unzipped, and it was my karate coach, and I nearly died. I was like, not again. But it was more just who do you trust?
Yeah.
It's all these people that are in authority positions in your life that are now, just breaking that trust.
You're probably your head is spinning about what in the world's going on in my life. And I think at one point you actually want to end your life.
Yeah.
Do you remember the day you put a chair on a stairway? Is that what happened?
Yeah, I actually sat on the top of the stairs, and we had some pretty steep stairs in the house. And it was when I was really having a lot of panic attacks. I was probably 10 years old, and just, my whole world had just changed. And I just remember sitting on the top of the stairs backwards, and my mom and dad were watching TV down the stairs right by where, the end of the stairs. And I just remember sitting there and just throwing myself backwards. And it was just, just didn't care anymore. It was, I was trying to get attention is really, I think, what I was trying to do. And there was a glass door at the bottom of the stairs. I could have gone, thank you, God, or I didn't, but I could have gone through the glass door. And, after I tumbled down the stairs, I landed at the bottom. And, I was expecting somebody to open the door or come and find me, and nobody did. So I just got up and went back upstairs. So
that probably exacerbates the anxiety inside you of not feeling valued.
Yeah.
Did you have any safe havens whatsoever in that time period?
I had a really good friend, a best friend, and her mom and dad they had no idea what I was going through, but every Friday night, for the most part, I'd spend the night over there, and it was just a calmness and a peace that I had when I was over there. I didn't know they were Christians until much later, but it's kind of amazing because I didn't know anyone that was a Christian, yet God had brought this friend and, her parents. And so that was kind of the only place I actually felt safe.
So at 16, do you decide to leave school, or are you technically graduated at that point?
Yeah, I'm graduated. In England, it's a little different. I know now you can go on to grammar school, but I had left school, and I was actually going to go on to college to be a sports psychologist, I think, at the time. I don't even know what that means, but I had the Gymnast magazine sent to me every month, and in the back of this magazine there was a little advertisement that they were looking for a gymnastics coach in Germany. So I applied, and I got a letter back a few weeks later saying the job was mine if I want to go over. So I was like, absolutely. But for me, it was a ticket out of my house and away from the abuse, and just far away as I could go.
Your dad was verbally abusive to you as well, and you probably lay on him that I'm going to go to Germany. How did he respond?
He just said, absolutely not. And I said, oh, I'm going, and he finally came around and he said, okay, but I'm going to go with you. You can go, but I'm going to go with you.
So how did that work?
Well, we took the bus to London, which is about a 3 or 4 hour bus drive down to London, and then we had to take the ferry over and then a train. And I remember just getting on the bus, and my dad looked at me and he just said, just pretend that you're my wife. I was 17 years old, and, I was like, oh my gosh, That
had to make you feel horrible based on what you'd been experiencing. So you get to Germany, and do you end up on a military base right away?
Well, the lady that offered me the job she was English, and she was a coach there too, so she had an apartment off the base, and I was going to stay with her till I could get my own place. And so I stayed with her, but, I was going to be working on the military bases. There was 3 of them. And so pretty quick, guys in uniforms, with an American accent. So here I am from England. I was like, I'm staying. This is where I want to be.
Before you go any further with that, did your dad leave then after you?
No, he hadn't gone yet. He stayed about 3 days, and he said, "You're coming back." And I said, "No, I'm not." And he says, "No, you have to. You're not staying here." And I said, "No, I'm staying." So, and he had $20. He gave me $20, and so I had my little suitcase and $20, and I'm in a strange country. I'm 17, and I didn't speak the language, but I learned it pretty quick.
So did you end up with a guy in uniform?
Oh, yeah. Well, the first guy I really met, he was a helicopter pilot, and he was actually in the American Air Force, but he was from Morocco originally. That's where he came from. And I just, to be honest with you, was the first person, I didn't realize just what a mess I was, to be honest with you, till I was out of the home and, in this strange place. And, I was looking for a father figure straight away. It was almost like somebody to take care of me. And this guy came along, and he was twice my age.
He's 32, you're 16?
17, yeah. Wow. He thought I was 18, though. I told him I was 18.
And how does that relationship move forward?
I liked him, but it was just, looking back, it was a terrible situation. But at the time...
Did you move in with him?
I did. I moved in with him. He had his own apartment, and few months into it, I ended up pregnant, and I just thought, I was excited because I thought, we were going to get married and we'd have a family, and, I could just pretend that other life didn't exist, kind of. And I remember him coming home, and he just said, "Okay, we're going to go to the doctors." And I'm like, okay. And, here I am, 17, and I hadn't had a boyfriend either, so he was kind of the first one. And we ended up in a doctor's office. Next thing I know, I'm having an abortion. And I didn't even know what an abortion was. He just said that the doctor had said it was just some blood cells, and, it wasn't a baby yet. And so that was my first, just like, oh my gosh, this is a nightmare. Just having an IV put in you, and being put to sleep and waking up, and I really had no idea what I had done, though, at that time.
Mm-hmm. But you stayed with him.
Yeah,
right?
I stayed with him. Yeah.
And he would travel.
Yeah.
I assume.
Yeah.
And so one night, I think one of his friends knows that he's gone.
Yeah. Yeah. Seemed like a really nice guy. We did a lot of things with him and his wife, and they would have us over for dinner. We'd do, just social things. And he called and said that he was going to go out for a run, and that, would he, could he stop over? And I said, well, his name, Hamid's not here. And he just said, oh, it's okay. I'll need a drink or something by then. And inside of me, just because of my past, there was a little, like red flag or just a little something. But you're always hoping that it's not,
the best.
You're always hoping that this person will be a good person. And so about half an hour later, he showed up, and he was all sweaty from the run, and he just had this look on his face once he came in that it was just terrifying. And I just knew that, this is not going to go well at all. And he ended up raping me. And there was even knives. I remember Hamid had these big knives on the wall, and he took them down and was just trying to make me scared. And it's like, you've already done enough, And my fear was, I'll never forget, though, I just said, please use something, because I just didn't want to go through what I'd just gone through, a month prior with the abortion. And but again, he left, and it was a very angry, hateful, just very, very, I'll just never forget, just a horrible experience.
You're probably at the bottom of how you've ever felt emotionally. Yeah. But you decide not to tell your boyfriend.
Yeah. I think, I've come to learn that there's so much shame involved in it. There's so much, You know, if somebody questions you, well, why did you even have him come over? Why did you open the door? You know, surely you must have thought that, you know, he was up to something. But, you know, you just, again, I think when you've gone through what I had gone through, it's, you just want to trust somebody. You just want to give them that benefit of the doubt that, you know, they're not all that way. And
you're dying to trust somebody, and
Yeah.
then after the trust is broken, you're playing it all in your mind on how it might create more distrust if you start talking about it. I
yeah,
assume. About a year later,
yeah,
your boyfriend shocks you
yeah.
with some news.
Yeah, he came home and he just said, we need to talk. And I said, okay. And he said, well, I'm married and my wife's going to come over.
And has been the whole time.
Yeah, he'd been married the whole time. And he had a wife in Morocco. And I had absolutely no idea. There was no pictures of her. There was nothing. And I just couldn't believe it because I'd already kind of pictured myself with him, you know, for the rest of my life. And I just couldn't believe it. It was, you know... But straight away, I just said, well, he goes, well, we'll get you an apartment and nothing's going to change, you know. I said, oh, it is, because I'm not going to do that, you know, that you have a wife, you know, I'm not going to be the other person. So
where did you go?
I left, and I remember I never had a place to stay. I just stayed with friends for a few weeks. I remember even hiding out in the bushes, wanting to see her. And I would call her. She never spoke English. She spoke French or Arabic, and I just wanted her. I was hurting so bad. It was just, I wanted her to know, you know, that there was somebody else. And your husband has been, you know, it's almost like when you hurt, you want to hurt.
Right.
And
but you never did?
No. And then I kind of moved on, and I remember I'd coached the gymnastics, and they had a little bus that went around the base, and I remember just sitting on it. I had nowhere to go, really, and I would just sit on it and ride it around. And I remember this guy getting on, and he just said, do you want to, you know, said, are you single? And I said, yeah, I am. And I said, well, do you want to come over to the dorm later on tonight? You know, we're going to have a party or whatever. And he was a military guy. And I said, okay. And for me, it was just something to do, you know. And he seemed like a nice guy. So I did. I went over there, and the other thought was, he was a good-looking guy. I just remember thinking, gosh, you're really good-looking. I know he had his arm or his leg in a sling, I can't remember, or a cast. And then he told me his story. He had a son that was in Oregon and living with his parents, and that he was divorced. And all I could think of was, oh, I could take care of him and this little boy, and, you know, and he was really good looking. I thought, he'll have some good looking kids. So, you know, when you're 18, that's kind of how you think. You're not thinking, you know, realistically or...
So is that who you married?
Yeah, I ended up marrying him.
And is it soon after that you're pregnant?
Yeah, actually I was pregnant before I got married.
Okay.
Yeah, I have to tell you the truth.
You had your daughter?
Yeah, Casey, yeah.
And how do you end up in Colorado?
Well, he was in the Air Force, so he got stationed in Colorado Springs. We'd been there.
Now, are you okay with going all halfway across the hemisphere?
Yeah.
Or is that exciting to you? It's kind of like getting away from it all?
Yeah, it was further away.
Okay.
So it was, you know, Germany's an hour on the plane, or, you know, America was a long way.
Yeah.
And no, it was just, for me, I was happy to go.
But how long are you there when your husband leaves?
Well, actually, my first shock was before we left Germany, my ex-husband had, he said, I'm going to stay here and close at the apartment. You take the baby and go see your mom for a little bit in England before we went to, then we were going to go to Oregon to see his parents before we then drove down to Colorado to kind of start our life there. And so while I was in England for a week, he was by himself. And my daughter was about 2 months old at the time, our daughter, I should say. And then we ended up in Oregon, and we were in Oregon a few weeks, and this letter came through the mail, and it was addressed to my husband at the time. And there was a German girl's name on the thing, and I remember opening it, and everybody was gone except myself and my daughter, and I opened the letter, and it was a picture of her with my husband, and thank you for the good times and all of this. So before we'd even gotten out of the country, and I'd just arrived in this country, I found out that he'd actually been having an affair with this girl.
How long had you been married?
About a few months.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
So you go to Colorado?
Yeah.
And how long are you there living together?
I'm trying to think. It wasn't long, and it wasn't good. I mean, I just remember when we got there, and a few months after that, he was drinking a lot, and I didn't drink, and he'd act really strange, and then he started to go out at night, and I would always kind of be by myself. I was actually coaching gymnastics. I got a little job where I could take my daughter with me on the base, just kind of part-time. And I came back with her, and we went upstairs, and there was a letter, and it was from him, and he just said he didn't want to be married anymore, and he was leaving and all of this, and I was just in shock. And so here I am now in this country, with a 1-year-old. I think she was about 12 months old at the time, and I'd left everything to be here. And
you're not a citizen?
No,
yet.
I didn't have a driver's license. I didn't drive. I had this little piddly job, and it was, what am I going to do,
And was it 9 o'clock that night that you heard a knock on the door?
Yeah. What he had done was the best thing that anybody could do. He'd actually left a message on our neighbor's answering machine saying that, I'm leaving Bev. Could you go over and check on her tonight,
Oh, my goodness. And what did he do?
So I'm sitting there with my daughter about 9 o'clock at night. Actually, I just put her to bed, and there was a knock at the door, and it was my neighbor. We didn't know him very well. He was quite a lot older than us, and he just said, could he come in? And he had a Bible. And I said, again, with my past, with all the guys, It was just, oh gosh, here we go. One's left, and now one's here at the door. I didn't know why he was at the door. But he did have a Bible, and he just said, can I come in? And I said, okay, sure. And he came in, and he just sat down. He said, Mike's left me a message that, he was leaving you. And
how'd that make you feel?
I don't know. I had mixed feelings at the time. Initially, it was, gosh, is this all planned? Kind of just scary, like, oh my gosh, this is kind of premeditated,
Took me halfway across the world and did this.
Yeah, so it was more just fear. But then, when he had his Bible and he said, can I read a few verses? And I said, absolutely. And at that point, it was, gosh, I don't even know what I'm going to do tomorrow or tonight, Yeah, you can read a few verses. And he opened the Bible up, and he just started to read. And I just, for the first time in my life, just felt peace.
Do you have any idea what he read?
No.
And is it the first time you think you've heard the Bible read aloud at that point?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It was just incredible to me that it's almost, I remember being 10, and really at the height of all the sexual abuse that was going on. I remember looking out my window and just looking at the street and thinking, is this all there is? Even as a 10-year-old going, it just felt so unreal, like this can't be real life. And, and looking out and just thinking, is this all there is? And it was almost when he opened the Bible and he started to read the verse, something came alive. And it was that this is what, I must have always known that there was something else.
It's the power of the word, isn't it?
Yeah.
So does he invite you to church, or does someone else?
He did, yeah. That Sunday, and I went, and then he asked me to. I went back the following Sunday, and, I heard that was the first time I'd ever heard anybody say that, God loved me and that he'd sent his son Jesus to die for me. I'd never heard that before, and that just the fact that somebody would love me enough to do that, just was incredible. So I right there surrendered my life to him. And,
wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And you're probably seeing life differently now.
Yeah.
I mean, you're new in the relationship with God, but you start praying for your husband to return. Is that what happens next?
Yeah, that's all I really wanted. I had a daughter, and, I think the more I was reading the Bible too, it was just, it was the right thing. I didn't want to be divorced, and So I kept praying for him to come back, and he did come. 6 weeks later, he came back, and he just said, I want the marriage again. And
so you got to think that's an answer to prayer.
Yeah, I did.
That this thing really works.
Yeah.
And then you were pregnant again and had a second daughter?
Yeah, had a second daughter. And around that time, though, even before I had my daughter, it was strange because I started to really get the panic attacks, though, that really bad. I mean, to where I don't think I've ever just been... So they were almost debilitating, to where I couldn't even go check the mailbox, and everything just seemed very unreal to me. And I think because now I felt some security that we had a marriage and kind of a family, that it was almost then that, I was kind of falling apart inside. And the anxiety attacks came back really, really bad, and I'd have flashbacks of my dad, and all the memories would come back, and I'd actually pushed them away for a long time, but now seemed like they were getting worse. I even checked myself into a psychiatric hospital for about a week because I just really couldn't go on. I mean, I was very, very anxious and almost agoraphobic, where I didn't want to go outside. It was terrible.
Your girl's father took care of the girls?
Yeah, it was just for that week. And and they wanted to put me on medicine, and I just said, no, I just need to get through this. And it was a terrible time. And not shortly after that, we were over at my husband's boss's house for Thanksgiving, and my husband was drinking, and I remember him just saying to me, his boss, Beverly, there's something wrong with him. And I said, what do you mean? Actually, my second daughter was about 6 weeks old at the time. And I said, why? And he said, he's in the bathroom, kind of smashing the bathroom up. And I was like, what? And he was. And he said, I think he has a problem. And I said, oh my gosh. And it turns out he was an alcoholic, and things just kind of got worse again. And
he was seeing other women too?
Yeah, the whole time.
You actually saw therapists and physicians?
Yeah.
And they took advantage of you?
Yeah, I had one therapist. I remember going to see him for my anxiety because I needed help. And he was a guy on base, and I'd go visit him, and he would turn the blinds down, and at the end of every session, he would give me this long hug, and it just felt so wrong. This just didn't feel right.